The Bill O'Brien podcast reaches thousands of BC football fans each week. Your company has the unique opportunity to tap into this upscale audience by becoming a sponsor. Contact Mike Wynn at MWINN@bostoncollegeas.com for more information.
This is the Bill O'Brien podcast with your host, John Meterparel.
Caught past the 25 to the 20 to the 15, goes Bond to the 10 to the 5 towards the end zone and in. Lewis Bond is the Eagle in the end zone.
Producer Ciaccio.
We were using the equipment from like the 1970s when Ciaccio was...
It was the 90s. It was the 90s.
Ciaccio was like
The
hanging out with his neighborhood
gerbil in
buddies.
the back was cranking it up.
Yeah.
The Bill O'Brien podcast, talking BC football, sports, pop culture.
The sun will come up tomorrow, slowly, but it'll come up.
The Bill O'Brien podcast.
All right, this is episode 43, the Traveling Roadshow. The Bill O'Brien podcast Traveling Roadshow. We're on location this week. I kind of feel liberated.
Traveling for the first time, that's a good point. We've never brought this on the road. But
how was the trip down?
Hold on now. You can't start talking until we introduce you. Like
we need this big build-up.
We've had some legendary guests.
Yes.
I mean, we've had a who's who of, Bob Ryan and Scott Pioli and Matt Light and Scott Zolak, and we've had a who's who of Mike Milbury, Doug Flutie. But this is my personal favorite, one of the greatest of all time, Mike Vrabel.
Of course.
Head football coach of the New England Patriots is kind enough to give us about 45
I don't need
minutes
the
of his time.
spiel. Like, I worked for Billy for 4 years. You got to understand that. You got to understand that. Worked for Urban for 2, Billy for 4. I don't know which one was worse.
We definitely are going to hit that. Urban Meyer and Bill O'Brien.
Both got me very prepared for this
I had to call
situation.
Urban to ask to tell him, like, hey, I'm going to bring Mike in, and Urban was not happy about that.
You had to call Jen. You didn't have to call Urban.
Yeah, I did have to call Jen. Sorry, I did have to call Jen.
When you brought him to Houston, right?
Yes. Tried to bring him to Penn State, which was a dumb thing to do. And then he, obviously stayed at Ohio State. But then when I got that pro job, that guy
Was he one of your first calls?
Absolutely. Hired him, Romeo Cornell. We had a good staff. The staff in Houston, the first staff was, we had Bill Kolar, was our D-line coach.
Very good.
Yeah, really good coach.
I just want to get we'll get into a lot of stuff here, but we got to get this out of the way. He already knows this. But episode 43,
Yeah.
come a long way. 43 in my mind, I think one guy, Al Iafrate.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
Did you make him say that?
No, I looked it up on the way here, though,
Former
to make sure
Bruin.
I had number
It's
43.
Eck. It's Dennis
Of course
Eckerson.
it is. We teased it last week. You
I don't
baseball
know.
guy?
I would have to say Eck.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh yeah, of course.
love the Eck.
Nate sold it. I mean,
Nate sold
Backdoor slider. Kirk
Nate
Gibson.
Ebner was
Ohio
43.
Kirk Gibson, Dennis Eckersley, backdoor slider.
Yeah, bad
Did you
pitch.
ever see the story on that?
Told the team, I said, you think about preparation, you want to know why our scouts and our coaches pine through all this information? It's to give you one nugget to go out there and help you win the game.
Mike, that's awesome.
That is
The
good.
scouting report for that game.
What was it? I'm
Watch-
sure you know it.
It was,
When he's got 2 strikes on you, he's going to go with a backdoor slider.
Oh,
and that's
bingo.
what Gibson remembered when he got up to the plate.
Watch
And
the
I'm
backdoor.
embarrassed that I can't tell you. Milt, I think the scout's name was Milt, but I can't be positive.
That I don't
How about
know.
that?
That would be amazing.
That's
if
a
you could
great
pluck
story.
That one. That is a great story. But see the art of preparation.
Yeah, no question.
This guy,
He's already using it.
I know he is. This
Preparing
is,
him
the
in
fact that we're
OTAs.
sitting in this office here, it's like an aura here. This office has been, legends have graced this office. You feel honored to be here or what?
Well, I mean, I feel honored to be here. I don't know who this has undergone a lot of construction, so I don't know who was here before I got here.
Definitely different than the last time I
We're
was
excited about the new facility,
Yes,
but it
that
being
looks
here
awesome.
in the stadium, it's been fantastic. It's seen a lot of familiar faces, a lot of new faces, and that's all part of it.
in. Yeah.
You drive into here, and it seems like there's development every day. When you drove up for the first time, months ago, what was your thoughts driving into this place that first day?
There's a lot of things that go through your head. I think first is you're just focusing on, evaluating the staff and evaluating the departments that touch and reach the players to make sure that those are all where you want them to be and everybody's in alignment and that they're working towards the same goal and that they're organized and that you have people in the right position. So you evaluate that because there's no players in January or February.
Right.
players. So then you do all those things to get those things in place, and you're just trying to build a program that when the players come back, it's something that they're proud of, it's something that they want to protect, and that they want to, most importantly, believe in.
Yeah. So just, one of the things that's most interesting to me about your story is the way you were brought up, the values that were instilled in you in Ohio by your parents. Dad was a coach. I think it's cool when you talk about that.
Ohio, and that's when in Youngstown and Akron and Cleveland, they were putting a lot of football players in college, basketball players and wrestlers, and I think things were thriving in that area, much like Pittsburgh. Grew up an only child of 2 educators. My dad was a gym teacher and health teacher and a basketball coach. So that's all I knew. I was an only child, so those teams, my dad taught me a few things. Again, when you're an only child, you get what you want. But I appreciated the fact that I learned the value of the team, how important being a part of a team was, and the value of hard work, right? Lugging mulch around, chopping trees, all that stuff that we didn't, we did in the summer. I didn't work in the summer. So that was all the stuff that we did. But the team was an extension of my siblings, my brothers that I didn't have. And I can remember being on the dugout and being like, hey, let's go home. We'll go after the game, come stay tonight and swim. And if I was saying that to 2 people, my dad was like, either the whole team's coming or nobody's coming. Like, we're not playing
That's awesome.
that.
Yeah.
We're not playing that, hey, bring a couple
Right.
kids over.
Favorites.
It's like we're bringing 10 or we're bringing nobody.
That's awesome.
And I've always appreciated that, to watch him, and then coach high school and having those players over and for different events and different things. So just being around that, I think really set the tone for what was to come.
I think that's one of the best parts about knowing you is that you take a vested interest in every one of your friends and their lives. And I think that's one of the things I tell people when they ask me about you is, my memories of you at the Patriots, obviously playing and things like that, but you knew everybody. Like even just this week, you texted me like the name of the lady.
Martha Bell.
Martha at the guard shack. I'm like, everybody. And I think you probably learned, that was instilled in you by your dad, knowing everybody.
None of us got to where we are because of just us.
Right.
I think we can't be that unrealistic.
Right.
And everybody's a part of this thing, and there's a part of our success. And we all have stuff. And when you talk about friends and their families, we all have stuff. Right? It may look different, it may smell different. What you have and what I have and everybody else and his coaching staff, I'm very conscious of those things. And so I try to, the higher you get up here in this profession, it gets lonelier.
Yeah,
right?
No doubt.
You've known that. You've been a head coach for many years. And so you always want to try to recognize that and don't do things differently or treat the assistants differently. Like they're going through the same stuff that I was going through when I was an assistant or when you were an assistant.
Right. When you think about, you've put together a very impressive staff. When I was kind of reading about it last night in preparation for this, the guy, obviously the coordinators, obviously Josh, who I am close friends with, and, Dougie, but there's, Thomas Brown and, Todd Downing and the guys on defense, there's some, when you think about the staff, I always say as a head coach, one of the hardest things to do is putting together a really good staff. You've obviously put a lot of thought into that.
I think I'm always intentional. I think intentional about it. The character is a big thing. The loyalty to this team, to each other, is something that's critical. The trust. And then obviously they have to be knowledgeable. There's a lot of knowledgeable people. There's a lot of people that, can draw up plays and, the gurus.
Right.
But we're in a people business and we have to make connections, and that's part of it. But I want them to all aspire to have more and to be more. I just want to be able to have those conversations with them and be open with them and to help them grow in their career and not undercut people to get there.
Right.
That's so critical because we're going to have some tough times. There's adversity in sports, especially professional sports.
Yeah.
So the ability to just weather the storm and do what's best for the team is critical value and characteristic.
What about, again, one of the best things, about you is your sense of humor, your quick
I've never heard all these best things from you, like all the compliments. I had to come on your podcast just to get these compliments. It's ridiculous.
Just like over. But the sense of humor, the quick wit, the ability to one of the stories that you I know you remember this, but like, you and Teddy would sit in the back row of the meetings, and if Bill said, you guys think you know about goal line defense, well, boom, and here came the Giants goal line defense up there, and he would be like, all right, Bill, like, we've seen this 50 times, like this Giants goal line defense.
I mean,
like,
the guys on defense, the offensive linemen back then were like construction workers in the offseason. It's like Lawrence, I said Pepper Johnson, and he was bigger than the offensive lineman he was knocking the crap out of. So we always had a good time. You either talk and you try to, be ready to back it up, with some wit.
Yeah.
Or you kind of get buried. And I guess when you run your mouth as much as I used to or still do, I guess, I don't know. It just kind of happens.
You were a go-to guy in the media, too. When we were at WEEI, you were on with us every week. Not our show, but another show. You did a weekly spot. Everybody kind of went to you, Teddy. There were go-to guys that people went to. You know why they went to you? Because you actually said stuff.
Well, I've tried to change that now. I've tried to say a lot and have it be very little. But I've also learned that, again, the accountability is what we always try to do is take ownership for mistakes or take ownership for the decisions that we made or will make. But it's just, I think, just building some trust with everybody, with the new organization, and with the team,
right?
Of just saying, hey, step up, take ownership, and let's move on.
When you were, if you go back to Ohio State when you were playing there, did you always think about maybe wanting to coach, or was it, hey, I'm going to be a pro, I'm going to develop myself to be a pro first? When did you start thinking about coaching?
I think probably just... Well, I loved coaching the kid stuff, right? When you play, you can come back and coach the second half of basketball. You can coach the Dyson fifth grade, two-time city championship, St. Michael baseball team. That's documented.
Is that in Easton, Matt? Was that?
Oh no, this was back in Columbus. This was Columbus. Yeah, this would go back in Columbus.
You would
St.
go back.
Michael's. I'd go back. The boys went half and half.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'd coach the second half of basketball season, and then coach the CYA.
That's right.
Baseball.
Yeah.
And so I was grounds crew and first base coach. I didn't know anything about baseball, but I could cut the grass and I could drag the infield and I could line it. I didn't know which way home plate went. Did a point go forward or did a point go backwards? And then I had a good other guy that was the head coach, and he was the third base coach. So all I did was get the field ready, make sure the concession stand was set up, and then I cheered when they ran down. I said, run. Good job. You're out, but good job. Like, that was my job. And then he handled all the strategy.
Right.
So that was my early coaching years. And then as it got to the end of my career, Luke and I spent a lot of Luke Fickle with Wisconsin, spent a lot of time on the phone, right? With coaches' hours early. I was coming in early. He was kind of making his coaching career as I was making my playing career.
Right.
So he went from Akron to Ohio State.
Right.
Ohio State to Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati, obviously, to Wisconsin. But through those years where he transitioned from Akron to Ohio State, we talked a lot in the morning, and then, just try to support him and kind of figure this thing out. And then the timing worked. I retired, and then I got hired there in June because of different circumstances that led him to be the interim head coach.
And then just skipping ahead a little bit though, but the past year in Cleveland, because you were on, you're a defensive player, you played a lot of defense. I know you were an offensive player. I know you. It's a tight.
10
that's been well documented.
12. Stop saying 10. It's 12.
Sorry.
The internet does not include the 2 in the Super Bowl, which would be the most important.
Yeah,
of course, yes.
There's legendary stories about practice when he would come trotting down to the goal line practice, but we'll save that for
Did he
another
ever drop a pass?
I mean,
go ahead.
So when
yes,
the year in Cleveland, because you spent a lot of time on offense.
Yep,
you were the O line and the tight ends, and Tommy Reed.
I actually liked that model. Kevin said, "Hey, I got a young tight end coach. I really like him. Why don't you start there? Meet with the offense, go through what the defense would be saying. Like, are they going to trap this quarters? Are they going to play read? Or how are they going to treat 3-by-1? Or what adjustments may they make?" And then we'd have conversations. And then I looked at some personnel that I would help. And then I would do the O-line, like player profile report on the rushers. And would present that to the O-lineman, help at practice. But it was the nuts and bolts of coaching. It was just about the players. It was about getting them ready to help at practice, not worry about a lot of the other stuff that we have to deal with outside of just working with players.
Right.
And that's why I enjoyed it and had a lot of fun.
Yep.
From the time you were in Tennessee as a head coach, we'll talk about your assistant jobs in a minute, but your takeaways there and what you may bring here. What did you learn in Tennessee?
Well, I mean, I think it's just a difficult league to win in as a head coach, and the things that you deal with throughout the building, managing the building, being great throughout the building for everybody. How can I help and support each department that helps the players? What do they need to do their job better? How can I help them do their job better? Relationships with players, making sure that everybody's ready to go.
Right.
Just being able to have the next guy, being able to win games in ways that may change each week based on who you have or who you're playing, what players are available to you each week, and ones that aren't, and how you still give the players a plan that they're like, okay, we can win this game. Like, I actually believe in this, that we can win this game, as opposed to saying, oh, shit, sorry, Bears, we're 10-point underdogs. Like, we don't have a chance.
Right.
Trying to put a plan together that the players believe, oh, we do have a chance. Like, we're going to play to this identity. We're going to play to this style. We have a couple wrinkles, and this is our path to winning the game.
Because Meter brought this up, when you were an assistant, obviously at Ohio State, but then you had, I hired you in Houston. But there was obviously in your mind, like, there was a pathway to pro football. Like, but you actually, just talking about college football a little bit, like you enjoyed recruiting. Like, you were a very good recruiter. You were, obviously developing as a coach. But the parts of college that you liked,
there was a lot. Making really helping some of these young kids out, an extension of our family, and with Jen and Tyler and Carter. Maybe some of these players had been from few hours away, or even by plane, in South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and felt a lot of obligation to support them. It loved recruiting, loved the high school coaches around Ohio, Texas, Chicago. It wasn't the recruiting; it was the spring recruiting. When I'd missed the baseball games, or hey, Tyler had a home run, or Carter made a great play. It was like, man,
that's ridiculous.
That's the ones that started. That's the ones where it was like starting to get
wear on you.
And but love to get out and meet families. Love to see the programs and the coaches work. I went down to Dallas. I mean, I hit 4 schools in the morning. Same 4 schools structured the spring ball and spring practice in the afternoon. 2 of them scrimmaged. And I hammered it, was having a great time. It was like Jamal Adams, and that year where it was like all these players right around this Dallas area,
Metroplex.
Thomas. Yeah. I came back, and the guy at Ohio State, Mark Pantoni, was like, hey, did you get any transcripts? He goes, where's the transcripts? I was like, transcript? I didn't go to school one time. I said, I drove around to the field house. They got an indoor facility, weight room, offices. I go, I didn't know that was part of the gig to get a transcript. I'm like, just call the guidance counselor or something. I never even went to school. It was awesome. It was the best. I spent all day just watching football.
Yeah. So, kind of jumping around here a little bit, but going back to the Patriots now when you were playing.
Okay.
I tell really every team I coach, especially defensively, like, I'll never forget when, I was, running a scout look for you guys in an OTA in 2007, and we broke the huddle. And it was you, and it was Teddy, and I think it was Junior, and it was Vince, and it was Richard, and it was Ty Warren, and Rosie Colvin. And I was like, but the communication, for me, it was the first time I'd been coaching 15 years, but I'd never heard like quick, precise communication on defense like you guys had. You're, tight end off, boom, boom, boom. Here, Teddy, here's what, and it was like everybody was chirping. And I think that's a big part of how you coach defense. Right?
Well, you try. I mean, you want a noisy defense, but you want a knowledgeable defense. You want just noise. You don't want white noise, right? It helps to be knowledgeable and understand what you could potentially get. Now, you're not always going to know, but there's some things you can eliminate.
Yeah.
Right, as far as just recognition by formations or motion. And it was, everybody had a responsibility
Right.
to see things and to communicate them. And then the verbal communication, the eye contact, the hand signals, working with Seymour, being able to run a game quickly, a read game or something, and just being able to take advantage of things that happened pretty quickly. So, but every snap, it was like that. It wasn't just a bunch of different snaps. It was, one play, told a story, go on to the next. One play, tell a story, go
Right.
on to the next.
Yeah. And your level of preparation as a player, which I know you've brought to coaching, is, when you did, I remember a specific example, you did the tackling clinic for our staff in Houston, all the different types of tackles that occur and all that. That must be something that you really enjoy coaching up on these guys, especially these younger guys, but even the older guys here, because, I was here. Some of these guys are still here. They're learning a ton from you, especially you, about how to
Just
study
trying
film.
to within reason, put yourself in a position of the player. Like, how are they going to do? How would I do this job if I was asked of it?
Yeah.
And is it reasonable to expect them to do it? Here's how I would do it. Try to teach them the fundamentals. Trying not to rush and say, well, we got to get all this installation in, but then don't focus on the details or the fundamentals that are critical, because then it doesn't matter what kind of plays you put in. Sooner or later, you can't scheme somebody to death. You're going to have to line up. You're going to have to play with your hands inside, and you have to tackle without crossing over or hopping or going off the diving board. Whatever the technique is for that position, or, hey, why as a receiver or tight end, we want to catch the ball out in front of our eyes? It's so that the DB doesn't come in and punch. It's going to be contested. When we get to the red zone, they're tight windows, and if we wait till the ball gets into our body, they're going to get hammered out or it's going to get punched out. I'm like, it's not just, or sooner or later it's going to bounce off our shoulder pad and it's going to get intercepted. That's why we're teaching it the fundamentals of each position, is because ultimately it's going to help the team, but it's going to help you do your job.
Yep.
All right, your time in Houston with this guy. Enough of the pleasantries. What'd you learn from
lot.
Bill O'Brien?
A lot. Billy, from an early time there, said, hey, I'm going to get you ready, and he did. He yelled up his end of the bargain as far as managing a staff and managing the different departments, the conversations, the activation list, the who's going to be up on game day and why, and the contributions to special teams, how we structure practice, why we structure practice, how the meetings. And so I've said this publicly numerous times. Those were 4 really positive years for my growth as a coach. We loved Houston. We had great players. We had some really good teams. So that was all very positive. And so those interviews came, and they were very easy transition for me, having been there for 4 years. Those were easy conversations with the teams. Some didn't like it. Tennessee liked it, and where ended up where I went.
Watching that Forged with Foxborough that they're doing is really good. But it seems like there is really good synergy here right now with you and Elliott and talking about, I always say how important that is, and pro football is to be on the same page with the scouts, right? You've got to do position description so they know what they're looking for, and then vice versa, they have to tell you what they're looking at, and it seems like that's going pretty well.
It is. I think everything and Stretch has been, John Stryker, who means a lot to me personally and to our staff, has helped coordinate that. I was able to, bring in Ryan Cowden to help in that personnel with Elliott. And the thing you said is, I sat down with the scouts. I said, hey, let's sit down and watch some tape. Ask me whatever questions. I'll tell you what I see. This is what we like. This is what we're looking for. These types of, like you said, position-specific, play demeanor, play style, measurables, all these types of things. What's non-negotiable? Hey, where can we come off the model a little bit? Where can we make some adjustments? And, I think we're off to a good start. You know how it goes. It's always a work in progress, and that's something that we'll have to keep doing.
When you guys, when you approach this period of time in the NFL, what's the biggest thing you want to try to get across to this team? Like, I know you're practicing, but I mean, it's not real football, as we all know. It's but there's things you want to get for practice tempo, and you want to
how we practice is critical.
Yeah.
The way that we move around on a field, the organization, one, I think we have to show them that we're organized and what we're teaching them is going to help them.
Right.
The urgency in which we move from drill to drill and how we get in and out of huddle and how we finish plays and how we run on and off the field and starting to build our identity when you can. All right, it's not going to be about hitting or physicality, but the identity that we want to build is something that we can work on. How we train in a weight room, how we condition, how we run. Our ability to retain information in the meetings, and just building the foundation is really what it comes down to.
That's great.
Throughout the process with Will Campbell, your first-round pick, Forged in Foxborough magnified this, but it seems like he's a perfect fit. Did you realize that early about him?
Well, you have initial meetings, and then we circle back around, and you go through every tape, you go through every play, and then we went back down and worked him out. And when we went back down and worked him out, it was pretty clear that he knew that this was the reason for us to come down. And from the time that we walked in there, he wanted to show us that he was the guy.
Is it true that he knocked you stiff?
I was in a 4-eye. We were working on 4-eye cutoffs on the backside of inside.
Why would
zone.
you get in a 4-eye on Will Campbell?
Because I needed to see what it was like. That's what
I thought it was like your typical drill where you have your pad on
Oh,
and
no,
he just kind
I
of.
was in a 4-eye.
And he was cutting you off,
And he cut me off, and he kind of jumped the snap count on me. So I
So he was offside. He was false start.
potentially. and he caught me pretty good on the second step, and I was kind of crossing over, and he got that backside hand in his sternum, and I jumped up. I said, "Okay, let's go again. Maybe we'll figure this out and keep going." But
We had Light on here about a month ago, and that's another thing I remember about you as a player. You were very close to the old linemen because you went against these guys all the time. They were some of your best friends too. So I bet that you saw some of that in Will Campbell, that he could be, a Patriot and somebody who
I think that everything he stands for and what he believes in.
Yeah, you can tell
how he practices and prepares, and that's a tough position. Right? It's a tough position playing in this league, and the type of defensive linemen that are in this league, and so you have to have some resiliency, and it's like playing corner. Like you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat playing O-line in this league. So. But I just like what he's about, and again, he wanted to prove to us that he should be the guy that we pick this year.
Still early, as Bill mentioned, the whole season here, OTA's ongoing. Where do you think you are as a team? Do you like what you see? Are you optimistic?
Well, I'm always optimistic. As a coach, it's never where you want it to be.
Right.
But I think there's been progress. I think there has. I think there hasn't been any pushback. There hasn't been anything. It's just these guys ready to work, and they seem to want the structure and to want the foundation that we're trying to build.
We got a great BC.
But we're undefeated still, so that's good.
Absolutely. It's spring.
You are.
It's June. We got a great BC guy on your team who you've coached in Tennessee, Harold Landry. How's he doing? He's
really good.
Yeah,
really good. And I think, again, I'm not. We don't speak for others. But I have seen a different version of Harold.
Yeah.
I think he's excited to be back up here.
Yep.
Be back with some of these guys that he's been coached by, and he spent a lot of time here and met his wife here, and they're excited to be back up here, and
that's awesome.
Looking forward to seeing him play.
What would the 18-year-old Mike Vrabel tell the? I'm not going to mention your age. Tell the veteran Mike Vrabel now.
Well, if I can't swear, I certainly can't tell you what I would tell Mike Vrabel from an 18-year-old to a 49-year-old.
You can swear. You just can't,
No,
every other word can't be an F-bomb
there's a lot in
we
there,
usually
man.
talk.
I just probably, you just be careful that you don't waste too many opportunities, right? We're all guaranteed opportunities. Some will get more opportunities than others. And maybe early on in my career, I didn't quite take advantage of enough opportunities. But stuck around long enough to make it to free agency and take advantage of the opportunity that I got here going into my 5th year.
I mean, that's one of the things too that I'm sure you preach to these guys is doing. Obviously, like doing what's best for the team. You did so many things for the team. You weren't just an outside backer. You played inside. You played special teams. Is that something that is important to you relative to the guys you bring in?
Well, I think that's tough to say. Yeah, if they can.
Right.
I don't think you can knock a guy for not being versatile. I think if they are, then you try to take advantage of it.
Right.
But it's hard to knock a guy that's not, and he's doing his job. If they show that they can, then you kind of take advantage of it and maybe put them at some different positions.
The other thing that I know you feel is, and I agree with you on this, is conditioning, right? Because you were always very well conditioned. And how much are you, do you think, you don't have to go into the specifics, but will there be a conditioning test? Are you going to?
Oh, yeah. We're running after practice, and we like to, everything we do, we want it to be intentional.
Yeah.
So we'll do rapid fire 30s with the quarterback on a hard count and our cadence, and everybody echoes the cadence down, and then I tell them to change the cadence, and then they'll go to some different cadence, and everybody kind of has to echo it back down, lock in, then they go. Defense is on a foot movement or the ball movement, and it's just rapid fire, like we're running a play, and we do a bunch of those.
Yeah.
Or, but the whole thing is with the conditioning, it's not just running a run. You're trying to play our identity, to bring our identity out. You have to be in shape, right?
No
to
doubt.
play to the echo, to whistle, and to finish down the field and protect the guy with the ball.
Yeah.
You have to be in condition.
So another favorite story of mine is, and I probably should be careful about how I say this because you want perfect attendance at OTAs. And you came to OTAs, but you weren't there for all of OTAs as a player. You had that deal with Bill.
I was there for
you
the
conditioned
OTAs.
at Ohio State.
I was there for the OTAs.
I know. But you
For the
conditioned
days
at Ohio
that we
State.
went out and practiced.
But then when we would come back for the conditioning test in the summer, remember, you would run it with the skill guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you ran it with the position, that was supposed to be faster and whatever than you. And you would always have something to say about that. Like, hey, Wojcik,
It wasn't
is this the
Wojcik's
toughest test you guys can come up with? Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember something like that.
He would.
The worst was in Kansas
He would crush
City.
Bill on that. That would be awesome. Yeah.
So the worst
Because
was
he
I
would
was-
crush the condition. He was in great condition. He can in
I
Houston.
wasn't very fast. I just had a lot of cardiovascular
In
output.
Houston, he would make some guys work out with him, like Will Lawing, and I mean, these guys would have to work out with him, and he'd have the treadmill like inclined at whatever 10, and he would just jump on there, and I call him the Marlboro Man.
So
he would just jump on there and sprint.
I go to Kansas City.
These other guys, I'm like, you're going to get hurt. Don't try to keep up.
That's going to be an
I go to Kansas City. They trade me to Kansas City.
Yeah, remember that.
And I'm all up in
That
my
was like a
feelings
funeral
about
and-
getting traded. And then I'm like, well, I'm not coming for the workouts. I'm coming for the mandatory stuff. And then I'm out. So I show up for 3 days. I leave the mini camp. And then we report to training camp. And I'd been doing this test, and I was so ready for this test. It was like the cut 300s, like 50 back, 50 back, 50 back. Man, I ran that thing as fast as I could. And I was like, man, all you guys did in the off season was work out in Kansas City. I said, I was there for 3 days. I'm killing this test.
He did. He did. He was the king of that. The king of that.
I was
Well,
like,
you
you guys
also
should have been working out in Columbus.
You got Frank Perrano, another BC connection.
Yeah.
As your
Walsh
strength coach.
Jesuit, Walsh Jesuit alum.
He's a BC legend. He's a BC legend. Father Jack.
Frank has done a great job for us in Tennessee, and then now here helping us get this thing going. So
It's awesome.
excited to have him as well.
When you sit down with Drake May in this office, the spacious office, what's your thought process dealing with him and coaching with him, and what's the next steps he needs to take?
Well, everything that you would want, players to do at their position, right? Take ownership, be accountable, know what to do. But when you're playing quarterback, there has to be a level of leadership and command that you have to have. And so those would be things that we continue to work on. There'll be things that I can help them with. Josh will handle, and Ashton and offensive coaches, they'll handle the reads and all that other stuff. I'm trying to handle the things that are going to help us, his mental approach, competitive stamina to play this position and understand how hard it is in this league to win and to play a quarterback position and play it well.
As we begin to wrap this up, we have the great Tyler Vrabel on the staff
Yes.
at Boston College. And I asked him the other day, I said, "No, have you made sure with your mom that it's okay that you go into coaching? Because, like, I know it's probably okay with your dad." But he said, "Oh, yeah, no, my mom's on board. He wants to be a coach."
He does, and
He's doing a good job. He coached
Thank you.
in camp. He works he's there all the time. He's there right now.
He loves it. And again, I don't know what – again, he played for a couple years, and he had an opportunity, and he got active for a couple games, and he played 60 snaps against Tampa and played them pretty well. But then at some point, his heart wasn't in it, and stepped away from football. And then he was like, "Man, I think I want to call Coach O'Brien." I said, "Well, then you should probably call Coach O'Brien." And I had never heard him so happy and excited about being back around football and saying, "Hey, there's a couple young guys, that I'm excited to work with. There's some things that Dante showed me, or some things that, Led showed me in Atlanta that helped me when I was trying to develop." And
Right.
so those are good things and good experiences. And again, he's got a lot of work to do. And it was funny. He's like, "Dad, I don't know anything about this Visio," and that's the computer system that draw.
Right.
He's like, "I did what you told me to do." He said, "I went and asked the GA, hey man, what can I do to help you?" And he's like, "Well, you can draw some cards on Visio." I didn't know what the hell to do. And he goes, "It spent me 45 minutes drawing one card." So I said, "Hey, come down here, meet with Riley, and he'll save you some time." Tyler spent 2 hours here. He goes, "Riley saved my coaching career because I was going to quit if it took me 45 minutes to draw one card on Visio."
And then fill us in on younger brother Carter.
So Carter graduated, right? So Carter graduated Tennessee
Tyler
Tech.
told me that. Yeah, that's awesome.
And that's amazing.
Baseball player.
Played baseball at
position?
Tennessee Tech. He was a third and first baseman.
Yep.
Excellent.
They had a good season. And again, like everybody else that doesn't do well in their conference tournament, they're not making the round of 64.
Right.
But they ended up third. They won a lot of games. I think third most in team history.
Wow.
Congrats.
And they got the third seed and then lost to a hot team in the tournament. And so now Carter's looking to what's next for him and transition on from baseball.
Great. That's awesome.
But yeah, everybody's doing good.
Yep.
All right, since we are short on time here, you got to give us one teapot story for Bill O'Brien.
He's got several.
I do have
He
some.
used to.
Wait a minute.
Him and there was another guy on the staff, and they were great coaches, and they did a good job. And they're very competitive on the staff. First of all, the pad that he wears, he doesn't wear it as a head coach. Well, I think you do wear it sometimes. The reason why that occurred, and he might correct me on this, is him and Izzo were working for me in Houston, and they came out to practice one day in full pads. Like they had
So
pads
it was
on.
the spring.
So I'm like, you can't do that. We can't have you guys.
The rules did not say. The rules say that players.
The GM was not real thrilled
Well,
with them coming out in full pads.
Just for what it's worth, the rule book, which I've read through the CBA, I have a copy right here. It says that the players cannot wear pads. Nowhere in the rules does it say that coaches can't wear pads. So we were trying to teach a hold-up, a punt return hold-up drill.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we might as well make it realistic and put shoulder pads on with a jersey so that they can grab the shoulder pad and the jersey. Why are you laughing? It's not even. This is serious.
It was ridiculous. No,
And it was
serious.
a good drill.
I could
And then
imagine.
I
it was
got
a good
serious.
drill.
Picturing it.
But
Like, what are you
then
guys-
I think maybe they turned it into the league,
Yeah.
or the league wanted to look at the and they said that you couldn't do that. And I said, well, then
Interesting.
put it in the rule book.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see a section where it said coaches couldn't wear pads,
Yeah, and then he was.
and they just added on to it.
Yeah, and then he was, and there were a couple other guys. It was a very, there was a lot of energy on our staff. We had a lot of energy.
Billy
and
would
he
go
would talk
off.
a lot to the quarterbacks, and I would say, "Stop talking to my quarterbacks." And it would last about a week, and then it would be boom, boom, and then I'd be like, "Stop talking to my quarterbacks."
We learned that it would boil over, and then 5 minutes later, he had already forgotten about it. He's like, "Hey, where are we grabbing a beer at?"
That's the beauty of it, though.
That's what he always says.
I say that all the time.
Say that all the time.
I might bark,
But like Jen will tell me, the shrapnel that we leave by doing that.
I know.
She's like, you may be fine,
Yeah.
but how is everybody
I know.
else?
I know. Colleen says the same thing.
I'm sure she does.
Colleen and Jen are good buddies.
Mike, can't thank you enough.
Thank
man.
you, Mike.
Appreciate
that
it.
was
This is
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, really cool. Thank you
Love
very
to
much.
get you on again soon.
Probably not, but anyway, no, I'm joking.
Maybe we get Stretch.
Yeah, we get stretched.
Can't
We get the
ask
whole
him to do it
staff.
twice, Meter.
I was only kidding, please.
I mean,
you could ask him
jeez.
like week 8.
Talk about greed.
No.
All the time. We talk about greed a lot.
100th episode, I'll do it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
There you
we'll
go.
do the celebration of the 100th episode.
We'll pre-tape.
I don't know if the three of us
Fired by then.
We know he's going to be number.
We got a lot of
if all of
games
us make it.
He's already got episode 50 wrapped up,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
doesn't
Maybe.
he?
I don't think so.
No. I can't do 43.
Maybe his name.
Come
but-
on, the number, man.
Yeah, but not his, he's not going to do it.
No, I know.
He's busy.
I know he's not going to do it. I mean,
But he meant the number.
Oh,
yes, I meant
that's
the number.
easy.
Of course, that's easy.
It's either him or Ninkovich.
It's Mookie Betts or Mike
And
Vrabel.
so obviously, Jen's all excited. We're gonna.
She bought a
apparently-
box.
Yeah, we're
They
gonna
bought a
be
box at the BC
BC
game. Did
you really?
suite holders. Oh yeah, Jen's trying to find.
I
a way
told
to spend
Colleen
the
that
money.
last night.
Damn.
She was like, "That is awesome."
That's fantastic. Thank you, Jen Vrabel.
Yeah, it's
yeah,
fun.
thank you
we
very
enjoyed
much.
it.
Thank you for the really appreciate.
You
it.
liking living
And
back here again? You a city guy? You a suburban guy?
I mean, I'm a city guy.
But when you played, you lived out here.
Burbs when I
Yeah.
played. No kids, nobody in the house.
Yeah, no.
All right, you still
Empty
like the city
nesters.
vibe.
City vibe. City-ish.
What time do you get
We're not
here?
going to ask him what his address is, Meter. I mean, he's
No,
not
I'm not
going
going to
to
ask him that.
What time did I get here? I
time
try
you
to
get
get
here
here
every morning?
by 5 o'clock from downtown.
work out in the morning, right?
Try to.
Is that what time you used to get to the office?
No, I slept a little bit more than that. That's,
Billy was in there earlier. I mean, I got to leave at 4:30 to be here at 5.
Yeah.
Holy cow, man.
All right.
Josh and I.
Some of those days.
10 o'clock, we're out of bed.
Yeah.
He doesn't even
3:45.
gardening until 9 a.m.
Yeah. He's got sun's got to come up.
Mike, thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Good luck.
guys.
Thank you, Braves. Appreciate it.
Yep.